What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Big Five Pod. And ladies and gentlemen, this is the moment you've all been waiting for. Though we're not quite at episode 100 yet, episode number 99. It's the Big Five preview. This is now our third Big Five preview. Of course, this is what we started the podcast with. I'm, of course, your co-host, Kyle Morello. We got co-host Jake Copestick with me. And to kick off this very special season of the Big Five, we've got Aaron Bracy of Big5Hoops.com, Bracy Sports Media, because who else would we pick as our guest to kick off this season with? So, Aaron Bracy, first and foremost, thank you for joining us. And how are you?
Wow, it's great to be with you guys. Episode 99. Wow, that's amazing. Congratulations, you guys do such a great job. Love listening to your podcast and thrilled to be with you today and so excited as we get ready for the season.
You and me and Cope both, and I can answer for him for that because I know that it's all we've been talking about for the last month or so. Cope, any words here before we kick off the episode about anything with the season, your excitement for the season, which I know is ample. But let's hear some thoughts from you.
Yeah, I've been watching the charity exhibitions, been eating that up, but I just want to be back in the building. I can't wait to be at LaSalle. Aaron, I'll see you there on Monday, November 4th, opening night. I just want to be back in the building, like back in for games. So very much looking forward to doing that in basically 4 nights. So excited for that. I just want basketball to start. There's so much with the portal and coaching changes, and then the dust settles to a T, and you just want to play. I feel like we've had enough time to talk about everything that's going on. Just want to be back in the building. Just want to see some games. So of course, I don't. It's not a surprise to anybody that I'm really excited for the tip off of college basketball season, but I'm very excited for 4 nights from today to be at LaSalle.
Listen, this is your Christmas. So this is all of our Christmases, and I don't even celebrate it. But this is a very special time of year, obviously from November through April as well. So without further ado, gentlemen, why don't we get right into it? We're going to talk about the Big Five. Let's first go over, some of our expectations for these teams. I think going into the last couple of years, some teams have had higher expectations than others. Of course, in the first 2 years of this podcast, we have not seen a team make the NCAA tournament. If it happens a third year at Cope, we might have to talk because that would be some bad news. But regardless, Aaron, I'll start with you first. Just for the league as a whole, I know obviously it's an unofficial league, but for the league as a whole, what are your thoughts going into this 2024-2025 season for the Big Five?
I think it's going to be better, and I think it's going to be the best that it's been in the 3 years since you had your podcast. In the 1 year since I had Big5Hoops.com, this is my second incarnation of a website covered Big Five. Back when I did it in the early 2010s, there were several tournament teams. Of course, Villanova was making the tournament year in and year out at that time. But I think this is going to be the best season of the Big Five. Now, the big question is, will that result in an NCAA tournament team? And I think it will. I think there's going to be at least one team coming out of the Big Five, I think, into the NCAA tournament. Obviously, I think St. Joe's and Villanova have the best opportunity, but there could be some surprises in there as well. I do think this is going to be a really good season for the Big Five.
I agree. And Cope, what do you think as well?
Yeah, I think it's the drought is. I mean, even just for 2 years for it to happen, it's like almost unprecedented with how good the basketball history's been in Philadelphia. And I do believe that there's a team. Here's my thing, Aaron. I think Penn could be a surprise team. I think Villanova and St. Joe's are going to be close. I don't want to say that I'm not. I don't think there'll be a team that could do it. But as it stands right now, and listen, anything that I say tonight doesn't matter when that ball gets tipped off November 4th. But St. Joe's and Villanova are going to be in the mix. Will they get there? We'll see. Because under St. Joe's under Billy Lang, and then as far as Villanova goes under Kyle Neptune, I'm still waiting for them to show me. There's talent there. St. Joe's has been on a steady incline ever since Billy Lang took over. But now it's like, hey, I want to see results. I want you to show me. And instead of me projecting Villanova to be as good as I thought they were last year, I'm going to temper my expectations because I want to see it. So though they're going to be in the mix, I think there's going to be two, three teams, whether that's, Penn at the Ivy League tournament, if they can make it there, Villanova and St. Joe's. There's going to be teams that are close. But I want to see results from these teams and see them get over the hump and get there before I go expecting anything. Because last year I was very high on St. Joe's was very high on Villanova. Fell short of what I was expecting to. But come Selection Sunday, I think the Villanova, St. Joe's, they're going to be in that at-large conversation potentially.
Yeah, no, I have to agree with both of you. Obviously, this is the second year in a row that Villanova and St. Joe's, like you both mentioned, are the two teams to watch out for in terms of making the NCAA tournament. Nova obviously being the high major blue blood as they are, haven't been that the last couple of years, but you know, I think they have the talent and Cope, as we've talked about with a couple guests now at this point, Ashley Howard and Tommy Godin, pieces fit a little better this year. I think the same thing with St. Joe's, as we talked about too, with Dave Hanley. I think the pieces fit better there as well. So while the teams do look a little bit different, I do think that maybe the chemistry will blend a little better. Maybe, like I said, the pieces will fit a little better. The team will be better as a whole, and not just the talent that's there individually as well. And also one team, and I know they're not projected to be all that high in this conference, but the one team to always look out for is Penn because there's just not a lot of teams in that conference, and there's only four teams that make the Ivy League tournament. And if they are one of those four teams, they just have to win two games to get there. So that's also a team to look out for. And of course, we've talked about Temple too with the incoming talent that they've had as well. So a lot of exciting, different possibilities that we can see in the Big Five. So why don't we dive into a little bit more? Obviously, we're going to go over some Big Five awards now, preview. We're going to go over potential player of the year, potential coach of the year, breakthrough player, freshman of the year, and maybe some Big Five first team, second team. I know Cope has a few. I think Aaron and I are going to, contribute to that as well. So, Aaron, why don't we start with you? And we'll start with the obvious Big Five player of the year. A lot of candidates, a lot of candidates this year. I think there's probably a couple that come to mind that are returning for their senior and senior plus seasons. But I want to hear your thoughts. Who do you think will be the player of the year in the city of Philadelphia in college basketball?
Not only are there a lot of candidates, there are a lot of candidates on the same team. So we'll start right there with St. Joe's. I think when you look at Big Five Player of the Year, you're going to look at certainly Eric Reynolds the second and Eric Dixon. Eric Reynolds the second from St. Joe's and Eric Dixon from Villanova, I think are the front runners. But if you look at St. Joe's, I think there are potentially three players that could actually be the Big Five Player of the Year, and Eric Reynolds the second, Xavier Brown, who was obviously the Atlantic 10 Rookie of the Year last year, and Rasheer Fleming, who is NBA scouts have fallen in love with him because of his versatility. I don't know that he's going to put up the raw numbers potentially to be a Big Five Player of the Year, but certainly would be a candidate. I think at Villanova, I mentioned Eric Dixon. I think he and Eric Reynolds II are the front runners. The Naismith Player of the Year watch list came out today. Eric Dixon is among the top 50 players projected in the country. Certainly would have to say he'd be one of the front runners for the Big Five Player of the Year. And then I think Wooga Poplar potentially could be another player from Villanova. The transfer from Miami could be a potential Big Five Player of the Year. And then those would be my five. I have a sixth candidate would be Jamal Mashburn Jr. from Temple. Just a great scorer. Certainly, I would say he's preseason All AAC first team. Certainly would be a candidate for the Big Five Player of the Year. Those are my six candidates, and I have a kind of a sleeper dark horse. And Cope mentioned Penn, and really keep an eye out for Ethan Roberts from Penn. No one really knows about him. He was the Patriot League Rookie of the Year 2 seasons ago at Army. He transferred to Drake, got injured, didn't play last year at Drake. He's coming to Penn this year, and I don't know the last time there's been a Big Five Player of the Year from Penn. Cope, you might know. It's probably been a while. But I think Ethan Roberts is a player who is going to be making a lot of noise, not just in the Big Five, but in the Ivy League this season. And someone to kind of keep your eyes open as a long shot, but dark horse candidate for Big Five Player of the Year. Certainly someone that could sneak into that Big Five first team for sure.
And I agree with you 100%. And ever since he was first picked, it was announced he was going to transfer to Penn. I said to keep an eye on this guy as a potential like newcomer of the year, not only in the Ivy League, which I do think he will be in the Ivy League because they don't take many transfers, but also in the Big Five as well. And we had Ian Wennick on from Ivy Hoops Online, and he had talked to Steve Donahue, who thinks that this is their best player. This could be their best player this year. And if that's the case, certainly everything lines up for the fact that he could be first team All Big Five, potentially stick his nose in there for Player of the Year. And I want to parlay that into, I think Steve Donahue's actually going to win Coach of the Year this year because look, as good as St. Joseph's and Villanova could be, like, I see a real possibility that Penn gets into the Ivy League tournament after missing it last year. And if they can do that and say St. Joe's finishes about right where they were, or maybe they improve a little bit, say they finish sixth or seventh in the A10, Villanova finishes maybe sixth or seventh in the Big East, but you have Penn that could potentially be the third or the fourth team in the Ivy League outside of a Yale or a Princeton. I think there's actually an avenue for Steve Donahue to win Big Five Coach of the Year here with the addition of Ethan Roberts, with somebody in Sam Brown who we'll get to that if he can stay healthy, I mean, those are two dudes that can shoot the lights out and really score. So I like that point, and he's somebody I'm eager to watch because I think Penn is going to be interesting this year. They're going to be deeper. They retooled, reloaded a little bit. I want to ask you this, Aaron, because you got to talk to Adam Fisher, and there's a guy I really like for Breakthrough Player of the Year that's on Temple right now, and that's Zion Stanford. So I want to ask you your thoughts on that. But I think Temple is actually the most intriguing of all the Big Five teams this year. Adam Fisher and his staff flexing their recruiting muscles. They brought in a bunch of really good transfers. And I think that this can actually be a top five team in the American, pick sixth in the preseason poll. So your thoughts on a Zion Stanford, and then I want your thoughts on Temple. You just put that article out, believe it was yesterday. So your thoughts on the Owls.
Yeah, so with Temple, I agree. I mean, Adam Fisher has really done, I think, a really good job of bringing in players that are going to make an impact. Um, just kind of a bit of a dark cloud over the Owls program with the news with Lynn Greer, the third, who is going to be out for the first 9 games of the season. That's going to be a really big blow. He'd planned to be their starting point guard, and just when you miss the first 9 games, it kind of throws off the chemistry. I had heard from Adam Fisher and from Steve Settle III, who I did a player spotlight story on about how great the chemistry was. So now they're going to have to overcome not having their starting point guard. I did ask Adam Fisher about just about every player on the roster, including Zion Stanford. And obviously, we've seen what he can do as far as scoring. And the thing that he needs to work on, and the coaching staff at Temple would like to see him do, is just become a better defender, something that's going to get him on the court more. But there's kind of some unheralded players that Adam Fisher talked about, like that didn't really have a big role last year that I'm kind of going to be keeping my eye on because based on what he told me, Quante Berry being one of them, Shane Dezzoni, like guys that didn't really have huge roles last season, but could have bigger roles this season. But I think Temple, I mean, they made it to the AAC final last year with a roster that, quite frankly, had no business being in the AAC final based on what they had done during the season. Obviously, they put it together and made a fantastic run. So clearly, this is a team that could make a deep run in the AAC. The coaches and the media showed respect by picking them sixth, as you mentioned. I don't see that league this season. I haven't studied the AAC as closely as others, but I don't really see, maybe FAU, but I don't really see a team in that league that's kind of really going to run away with it this year. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong. I know you just talked to Riley Frayne about that. But I certainly think Temple could be a team that makes an impression in the AAC. I don't think their non-conference schedule is strong enough. Even if they were to do well in the non-conference, I don't think their schedule is strong enough. Schedule strength is strong enough to really get into that at-large conversation. So they're going to have to do it through their conference. I don't foresee them getting to the NCAA tournament this season. I do foresee them being better, but I just don't know how all this, I just feel like, with the Lynn Greer suspension, the Chris Clark suspension, it's just really not the way you want to start the season on a positive note. I don't know how much of an impact that's going to have. I certainly felt less optimistic about Temple's chances following those suspensions than I did before.
Yeah, yeah, we talked to Luke Taylor of the Full Court Press podcast about the AAC, and he mentioned that, you know, the top two teams in the conference are going to be UAB and Memphis. Maybe not in that order, maybe it's flip-flop, but those are going to be I think the top two teams. Obviously, Memphis with Penny Hardaway, like they are really, really good at bringing in transfers and talent. They brought in Tyrese Hunter from Texas, some other guys that I am not remembering right now, but they have an influx of talent. And then UAB, they were obviously a very, very good team last year. They made the tournament. They won the AAC over Temple, and they're returning some guys from there as well. So I think those are going to be the two best teams in that conference. But I can't see an avenue where Temple is among the top five in the conference. They were picked six, like you mentioned, in the coaches poll. And, they have the talent. And Aaron, I think I have to agree with you. I do think Jamal Mashburn will be among the leaders of the Big Five Player of the Year. I don't know if I'm going to pick him. I think my pick, and I don't want to say it's a cop out. I just think it's a good prediction. I think Eric Reynolds is going to be the guy. He's something special, someone we all know and love. But I do think Temple will be, I don't want to say the biggest X factor in the league, but they'll be the most intriguing league team in the league for sure. Just because the floor, I think, is, definitely higher than last year, but not tournament worthy. But their ceiling, I'm not going to quite say tournament worthy, but I think they can definitely make some noise in the American. And we're very much looking forward to watching them play this year. But Cope, I want to hear your thoughts on Player of the Year as well. I think we might be thinking the same thing, but why don't you let us know?
So it's tough to go against Eric Dixon, who just won it last year, who's returning. But and I've been kind of beating the Eric Reynolds like door here for a little bit, both in Big Five Player of the Year last year and also A10 Player of the Year. And he just is getting beat out by guys that are really good. Number one in Eric Dixon for Big Five, and then last year in the Atlantic 10, lost to Deron Holmes a second and got drafted in the first round. So you can't really fault him either way. I'm gonna roll with him again, Kyle. One of these times I'll be right, right?
I think so.
Right? Like it's got
I
to
think
work
so.
one of these times. So I'll take him again. I think St. Joe's is in for a better year. And I think an interesting storyline that could maybe push him over the top is if this is a team that can win the Big Five again and he can break Jameer Nelson's scoring record, perhaps it's those milestones that allow him to get the extra nudge over the top to win Big Five Player of the Year. So I'm going to roll with Eric Reynolds again. I hope I don't jinx him because he was damn close last year. He was damn close to Conference Player of the Year in the A10. I'll roll with Eric Reynolds.
All right. Can't blame you for that one. Moving on to some other awards, though. We've got Freshman of the Year that we have to go through as well. A lot of good candidates for this as well. I think probably Deuce Jones from LaSalle. I mean, we've talked about him on the show a lot. We've raved about him. I think he's going to be something special. Might take some time to develop into, the star player that Jameer Brickus and Khalil Brantley were in that backcourt. But I think coming in year one, he's definitely going to make an impact. So that's going to be my pick straight off the bat. Aaron, I want to hear your thoughts. Freshman of the Year in the Big Five.
Yeah, I think there are two candidates, quite frankly. I think Deuce Jones is one of them, and I think Desir Haskins from St. Joe's is the other candidate. Those are I think they're going to be far and away the two biggest impact freshmen this season. I think Villanova might have, out of the mix, maybe a Josiah Mosley will get some strong minutes for Villanova, but he's going to be a backup big who comes in, grabs some rebounds, gets some points. He's not going to be able to put up the kind of numbers that I think will need to have a big impact. Temple has a couple guys that are going to maybe fill into the rotation. I think Aiden Tobiason being one. I don't think a big impact. I don't know what Drexel has. What they have redshirt freshman. Is it Horace Simmons from Drexel? I believe he's going to have an impact this season, but not someone who's going to put up big numbers. Penn has a couple guys. I know Steve Donahue likes their point guard. I forget his name. I'm going to look at my notes real quick. He's going to come in and play some backup minutes. I don't have him in my notes here. I believe his
If it's
first name
AJ
is
Levin,
Aiden.
that's who I have.
Who is it?
AJ Levin.
Yeah, that's right. He's going to be playing some backup minutes. But I think the two players that are going to have the biggest impact are Deuce Jones and Desir Haskins. If I had to choose one of them, I'd have to go with Desir Haskins, um, sight unseen. So I'm kind of going on, what's been told to me. And also, he had an impressive, I'm going to say debut, not really a debut, but in the scrimmage versus Bucknell. I think maybe like 14 points, 8 rebounds, really solid outing. So those would be my two guys, with Desir Haskins being my front.
So Desir Haskins wasn't even on the front of my mind because of the red shirt last year. It was almost like the Ben Simmons like rookie of the year, where if you remember Donovan Mitchell wore that shirt that's like
Does he not count?
yeah. Well,
No,
no,
he
I'm gonna count
counts.
him because it's
He
yeah,
counts.
he didn't
Okay.
play last year, and that's who I
But
was gonna be. I was
the
between Deuce Jones and AJ Levin, but like
the
that's a guy
Donovan
who's
Mitchell
biggest
reference is
role of the
funny.
year. Yeah. Donovan, what a joke that was anyway. Well, she ended up getting the last laugh because Ben Simmons is horrible now. But anyway, Haskins gonna have the biggest role with the youth on the bench for St. Joe's and not too much experience, although he didn't play last year. Like he got the year under his belt, and Aaron, you're right on the money. He was impressive in that game. He's got size, athleticism, length, like a lot of plus traits that you like. That he's probably gonna be the sixth man for that team. And if they're a good one at that, I think it's his award to win. I think AJ Levin can put up a fight. When we talked to Ian Wennick, he had said, like, look, like this, I mean, you look at all the metrics, Penn was a bad defensive team last year. And as a freshman, AJ Levin's come in and Donahue's basically said, like, I think this is my best home ball defender. So if that's the case, he's going to have a path to a lot of playing time, to play behind Dylan Williams coming in from Triton. And then another thing is, obviously you don't want this to happen, but Sam Brown has had injury issues. Oh, over his freshman year was dealing with an injury in the offseason. So if he has to miss any time, perhaps it's AJ Levin who could see some starting minutes. And as far as Deuce Jones goes, I was at LaSalle practice a couple weeks ago. He's going to be a player. You're going to see it this year. He's going to be up and down because that's how all freshmen play. They take their lumps. But man, that guy is fast. He's going to be hard to stay in front of. He's a nice athlete as well, attacking the rim. Like, you're going to see how good this guy is this year, probably in a bench role. But down the road for LaSalle, I think he can be a superstar in this league. And I know it doesn't really answer the question as far as freshman of the year goes, but I'd say those three guys. I'll say Haskins is my winner, and then probably AJ Levin at two, Deuce Jones almost like a two-way. I think those two are going to be very close.
I can see it. I can see it. And yeah, Ian Wennick did rave about AJ Levin. I mean, I think, as I mentioned before, I think Penn could be definitely the sleeper team. I mean, Temple being like the X Factor team that can go either way, but I think in terms of making the tournament, I think Penn can definitely be a team to watch out for, and we've talked about that as well. I do want to get into Coach of the Year too before we start to move on to the first team, second team honorees, and then of course where we think they'll finish in the season in the standings. So, Coach of the Year, I'll start us off. And I think, I don't want to foreshadow things too much. This team's going to be very, very good though this year. And I think it's finally the year that this coach takes a leap and gets his team hopefully into the NCAA tournament. Um, but I am going to go with Billy Lang at St. Joe's. I think this is the year that he takes the leap. I think while the talent might be comparable to last year, I think, like I said before, the pieces fit a little bit better. I think team as a whole um, is more cohesive. And I think this will be the year that he finally puts it together and he will win Big Five Coach of the Year. And I can definitely see a scenario where St. Joe's is a representative of the Atlantic 10 Conference in the NCAA tournament and a representative of the Big Five as well, of course. But Aaron, how about you? What do you think Coach of the Year in the Big Five?
That's really tough. Zach Spiker took it last year, which probably no one would have predicted in the preseason. Maybe you guys did. Um, I'm going to kind of take a look at the different coaches and take a look at what they need to do. I think the Big Five Coach of the Year is going to come from St. Joe's or Villanova because I think one of those teams is going to make the NCAA tournament. I think one of those two teams is going to win the Big Five Classic. To Cope's point earlier about Steve Donahue, like I do think Penn could surprise people in the Ivy League. For him to win the Big Five Coach of the Year, I think they're going to have some success in the Big Five. Now they have a tough deal with their schedule in the Big Five. They're going to have to go to Villanova and play a Villanova team that has revenge on their mind from last season. That's going to be really tough. and then they're hosting St. Joe's, which on paper probably has the most talent in the Big Five. So two tough games. If Penn can pull off a victory in one of those games and then have success in the Ivy League, I think Cope's Point is a really good one. Um, and I don't think you can ever dismiss any team coached by Fran Dunphy, the all-time
Yep.
winningest coach in Big Five history. And while I don't think LaSalle is an NCAA tournament team, they could come out of their pod and make the Big Five championship game. And in a winner take all game against St. Joe or Villanova, um, LaSalle has players that have played at the highest level. Mac Etienne has played in the Pac-12 and the Big East. Demetrius Lilly has played in the Big Ten. Jaleel White hasn't played in Power Five conference, but obviously he's played in high-level AAC basketball and had success. So that could be a sneaky dark horse, but I am going to say either Billy Lang or Kyle Neptune because I do think one of those teams is going to make the NCAA tournament.
All right. And Cope, how about you?
Well, I spoiled mine. I think it's going to be Steve Donahue. I think there's a
You did
path
say
to
that,
do
yes.
it.
I'm so
Now,
sorry.
here's the
Yes.
thing. Yes, it's tough because you St. Joe's coming to the Palestra, and then you have to go to Villanova. But like, look, Zach Spiker won. He was wanted. They played two close games. They played Temple and LaSalle both right down to the wire, and they were able to beat Villanova. So I think if Penn can still have a good season, even if they just manage to win, even if it is a fifth place game, or they can just manage to win one or two games, I think Steve Donahue has a path. So I'm going to go that. I think it's nice we all have different people. So I'll go a
Yes.
little outside the beaten path here and take Steve Donahue.
I love it. I love it. Listen, we love a little parody on the podcast predictions. We're not mad at it. All right. And speaking of which, I think we'll probably have a little bit differing opinions on these items as well. We're going to go over first and second team Big Five right now. Obviously, a lot more people to choose from in this activity. So I'm definitely interested to hear your guys' opinions. Aaron, why don't we start with you first? Who do you got Big Five first team? And then if you want to give your second team as well here before we move on to Cope.
So I haven't written anyone down. I'm kind of doing this on the fly off the top of my head. So are we going five for the first team and five for the second team?
Yep.
Yeah, none of
All
this
right.
like Big Ten stuff where they have 10 guys on the first team.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
All
It's
right. So I'm
ridiculous.
going to stick with my kind of Big Five Player of the Year prediction. So I'm going to go with first team. I'm going to go with Xavier Brown, Eric Reynolds second from St. Joe's. I'm going to go with Eric Dixon and Luka Poplar from Villanova. And I'm going to go with Jamal Mashburn Jr. from Temple. That would be my first team. Second team, I'm going to go with Rasheer Fleming from St. Joe's. I'm going to go with Ethan Roberts from Penn. Um, this is going to be kind of a bit of a dark horse, but I'm going to go with Jordan Longino. I think he's due for a
I
breakout
like
season
it.
at Villanova. I'm going to go with him on the first team. I'm then going to look over to LaSalle for a second team. I'm gonna, this was my last pick of the A10 potential preseason players of the year. This is a potential double double every night. Not talked about a lot, but I'm gonna go with Deshaun Shepard for second team from LaSalle, and I'm gonna give you another sneaky surprise here for Drexel, and I'm gonna give you Kobe McGee as a potential breakout Big Five second team
Hmm.
player. Probably a bit of a long shot, maybe more of a third team player. There might be some more. Like I left Desir Haskins off. Um, who'd I leave off from Villanova? Jameer Brickus, potentially. Who'd I leave off from Temple? Uh, no one really popping to mind. So yeah, I'm gonna stick Kobe McGee in there, but also acknowledge that, if I really had to think about it, I might sneak Desir Haskins in over Kobe McGee. But again, I hadn't written anything down, so I just wanted to do it kind of off the top of my head, and that's what I came to at the moment.
All
That's
right.
probably for the best because as I look at what I wrote down, I made a change today, and I feel like the more I look at it, the more I want to shuffle things around. So Eric Dixon, Eric Reynolds, obviously are the two locks, pretty much barring an injury, they'll be there. Wooga Poplar on the first team, Jamal Mashburn on the first team. And I'm actually going to make a late change here. I do have Rasheer Fleming on the first team because I'm that high on his game, but I think Xavier Brown's going to have the numbers and the usage that's going to allow him to be there instead. Not that Rasheer can't make it there, but I think Xavier with his scoring ability, his numbers, and like his wow factor is going to propel him to first team. Rasheer will be on the second team. I have Ethan Roberts, Jameer Brickus. A healthy Sam Brown can make this team. A healthy Sam Brown is one of the, if not the best shooter in the Big Five. And if that's the case, I think he's going to put up a lot of points. He's going to be in a position where he's going to play off the ball more and is really just going to be a shooter and a finisher. And I think he's going to be able to put up a lot of numbers if he stays healthy. And then I'll give you a sneaky one here. I went back and forth between Eric Acker and Meech Lilly, and I think you can interchange either one. But I went with Eric Acker because with LaSalle losing Jameer Brickus and Brantley, they're going to need somebody to create. They're going to need somebody to score and to make it happen on offense. And this dude showed the ability to do that at Long Island. He looked really good in the practice I was at. Quick first step, just got a knack for scoring. Quick dude, can rise up and shoot. Like just a dude's got a really impressive scoring package. So I went with Eric Acker on the first team. I feel like it's a lot of Nova and St. Joe's guys. Both of them are tremendously talented teams, but I think Eric Acker is a sneaky one. He's a young guy, but that guy's gonna put up a lot of points for LaSalle because they're gonna need somebody to do it. I think he'll fit the bill.
Yeah, excited to see him play this year. I do also think you meant second team for Eric Acker. You did say
Yeah.
first, but second team for Eric Acker. I could definitely see it. He's going to be a breakout candidate. I also have one as well on my second team, but I'm gonna get to that in a second. First team is going to look a little chalky. I think a little bit different for the two of you, though. Obviously, the two locks, Eric Dixon, Eric Reynolds, second. Jamal Mashburn Jr. is going to be on there, and then I have X Brown and Rasheer Fleming as my other two on there. And then second team, Wooga Poplar, Jameer Brickus, the backcourt for Villanova, will be on the second team. Ethan Roberts from Penn. Sam Brown Cope, also from Penn. I'm going to agree with you there. Definitely one of the breakout candidates in the Big Five. I think his shooting prowess is going to come to fruition this year. I think Ethan Roberts is going to help relieve some of the pressure of the scoring. Although, he did have Tyler Perkins and Clark Slackett for half the year last year, but taking another step this year as well for Penn. And then I'm going to have one that I don't think either of you guys had on here. I'm going to go with breakout candidate in year two, Zion Stanford. I think he will be once again named in an award, and I think that will be in the form of the second team All Big Five, obviously freshman of the year last year. And it's going to be interesting because that is a crowded backcourt there. He will probably, the first 9 games when Lynn Greer is suspended, I'm assuming he will be starting. But when Lynn Greer is back and takes his role as the point guard of the team, Zion Stanford could shift to the second team in the six-man role. But what if he plays well and he just stays there? Definitely a possibility. We've seen the talent there. His role is only going to expand as he gets older, as he continues to develop. Year two in his career, year two under Adam Fisher. I like the prospect of Zion Stanford, and I'm going to go with him to fill out the second team in the Big Five. So I'm glad we had a little bit of different guys there in the second team, especially. So cool with that. Now let's get into the fun part. Not that this has all been fun. This has all been a lot of fun, but we're going to talk about the Big Five schedule. We're going to talk about the Big Five Classic. We're going to talk about where these teams are going to shake out in the Big Five. Aaron, you did talk on something a little bit earlier that I predicted in my head a few weeks ago that I've been waiting to share on this, but we're going to get to that in a second. But Aaron, I'm going to start with you, of course, as our esteemed guest here. Let's fast forward to the Big Five Classic. What are your matchups? What are your seedings? And then who will ultimately come up top in that prime time championship game?
Wow, it's tough. You got to look at that first game, November 12th, Villanova at St. Joe's. I think that's going to make or break that pod one. Whoever comes out of that first game, obviously no disrespect to Penn, but I think whoever comes out of that game is going to be in the Big Five championship game. And I have to go with the home court advantage here with St. Joe's. But I do think that the 5 p.m. start could mitigate the home court advantage slightly. I don't know that the arena it's an arena, it's a gym. I don't know Hagan Arena is going to be quite as raucous as it would be for a 7 or an 8 o'clock start. In fact, we're we're less than a week away from that game as we record this, and there are still tickets available. That game has not been sold out yet, which is really surprising. So I'm going to go with St. Joe's to win that game and then to beat Penn at the Palestra. But I don't I I would not place a bet on that. Let's put it that way. I don't feel that confident about St. Joe's beating Villanova. Villanova is very hungry after going 0-3 in the Big Five last season. This is a proud program. This is a program that brought in guys who know the Big Five, two Big Five to Big Five transfers, Philly area players, Luka Poplar being one of them, Jameer Brickus. They have Eric Dixon. So this is a program that is going to have revenge on their mind. So I'm going to say St. Joe's out of that pod, but I'm also going to say don't put your mortgage on my words here because I think Villanova certainly could take it. But whoever wins that game is going to come out of pod one, I think. And then in pod two, I think you have to say Temple is the favorite on paper. However, the game is going to be November 30th at LaSalle. That is going to be a sold out Glazer arena. LaSalle can handle business and beat Drexel, which I don't think is going to be an easy thing to do. Drexel is going to be, an under the radar team because they lost Amari Williams, they lost Justin Moore, but they're going to surprise some people, and I don't think it's going to be an easy out. I do think LaSalle will beat Drexel, and then it's going to come down to, and I think Temple will beat Drexel. It's then going to come down to November 30th at Glazer, and that's going to be a tough, tough, tough environment for Temple. Um, Having said that, on paper, I think Temple has the better talent. So I'm going to say Temple and St. Joe's in a rematch. And I'm going to say St. Joe's coming out on top again. But I could very easily see Villanova playing LaSalle and Villanova coming out on top. Or this is the Big Five. We've seen it happen before. It would not surprise me if LaSalle somehow gets in and wins it. So I am completely hedging myself and throwing all kinds of caveats in here because it's just sports. I can't predict it, but on paper, I think St. Joe's has the team that I think is, for me, the front runner. But look out for the others.
All right, all right. Cope, you're up next.
Yeah, so I need to redeem myself because last year I actually said that Drexel would be the champion and it would be Drexel versus Villanova. And sure enough, they're playing in the first game of that day and Drexel ends up beating them. So I did not have a good showing doing this last year. So maybe what I'm about to say means nothing at all. I'm still going to throw it out there anyway. And I think that Villanova is going to be playing Temple and Villanova is going to end up winning. Lynn Greer is going to be suspended, believe, through the entire Big Five slate, so they won't have him. But I still think they have plenty of talent on that team and scoring to be able to make the championship game. I just think they're going to out-talent both LaSalle and Drexel. I believe they'll beat both of them in close games. I mean, triple overtime. They could not have played two closer Big Five games last year in pod play. They went to triple overtime with LaSalle, and then they were in control for that game against Drexel that I was at. And if it's not for Amari Williams missing a tip in that he probably should have had, they're not playing in that championship game at that Saturday. So Temple, I think, will get back to the championship game. I think they'll see Villanova there, and Villanova will end up beating them. I think the Lynn Greer omission of that game is going to hurt them a little bit, but I think it'll be close. I think there's going to be a lot of parity, which is nice to see. I think all six teams, I think, will be competitive. The crowds last year were really, really good. I was at Drexel for the Temple game. It was great. It was sold out. Place was rocking. So looking forward to it. Should be some really good games, some good atmospheres again. But Villanova over Temple. So that probably just won't happen after I say that.
Well,
Hopefully, we'll see.
for your sake, I hope it does because listen, I was very high on Drexel and the Big Five play too last year. Did not end up that way, and obviously Villanova as well. So You're not alone in that. I don't remember exactly what I had. I'll have to go back, but you're not alone in that. All right, for my picks this year, Aaron, I think I am going to agree with you. While I do think, I think Penn will be better than advertised this year. I do not see them winning a game in this pod, and I think it will come down to the Holy War at Hagan Arena on November 12th. And I'm going to go with the home court advantage here. I'm going to go with St. Joe's, though the game is not sold out as of the day of this recording. I do think eventually St. Joe's fans will show out. They ended up beating Nova on the home court last year. Now they get home court this year. Nova will be hungry, like you said, try to return the favor, but I do not think they will. And I think St. Joe's will be going back to the final to try to repeat. And then you go to the other pod. And I think we can all agree, no disrespect to anybody, this is probably the least of the talented of the pods in terms of the teams in it. I think the best two teams are St. Joe's and Villanova in the Big Five this year. Penn's probably fourth or fifth, depending on how you see things. But I think that this second pod, though, is going to be very, very interesting. I also don't think Drexel will win a game in this pod, though I do believe in Zach Spiker. I just don't think the talent disparity between last year where they were, the amount of pieces they lost, maybe not the amount of high level pieces that they brought in to replace those players this year. I don't think they'll end up getting it done. So I think LaSalle and Temple will both beat them. And then, Aaron, like you said, it will come down to November 30th, Temple at LaSalle. And on paper, Temple is the better team. And they have the talent, they have the backcourt, Adam Fisher in year two, all the things are lining up for them. However, the first Big Five home game at Glazer Arena, Fran Dunphy and a LaSalle team that I don't think is going to be great, but I think a team that is going to be overlooked. With all of that being said, I think LaSalle pulls off the upset. I think they get it done, and I do think they will be meeting St. Joe's in a little bit of an unpredictable Big Five championship game at the Wells Fargo Center that I do ultimately think St. Joe's will prevail in and be the back-to-back champ of the Big Five. But I do think LaSalle is going to get there, and I think that's going to excite a lot of people. I think Glazer's going to be rocking for the Temple game, and I think they're going to end up pulling that out and meeting St. Joe's. And like I said, ultimately St. Joe's, I think, will beat them. I think the talent disparity there is a little bit too great to overcome. But seeing Fran Dunphy in the Big Five championship game, especially in the second year of this new iteration, after the excitement last year of the Khalil Brantley walk-off shot against Penn, double overtime, or was that single
Triple.
overtime? Triple overtime.
No,
See,
no overtime, just single.
overtime. Okay, okay. There was a lot of overtime games in the Big Five play last year. Uh, I think it's going to be just a very, very exciting year for Big Five play. Obviously, going forward after that into January, February, March, it's going to be exciting for all the teams. But that is my official prediction. St. Joe's over LaSalle in the championship game. And I don't know if I feel like giving predictions for the other games too, just because, championship is what matters ultimately. That's what people are going to remember. And I think St. Joe's for back-to-back years will be hanging a banner at the Wells Fargo Center. And with that, I mean, I'm just very, very, very excited for this now. Guys, we're here. We're here. Do we ever think we get back here? It's a long summer, but we are here and we're very excited for it. So, Aaron, I'm going to go to you before we wrap up here. Any final thoughts on the Big Five year to be as this is releasing on the start of the season, November 4th? What are your thoughts?
Couple thoughts. As we went through the first and second team, I was just thinking how we had a variety of players, which I think speaks to the fact that there is more talent in the Big Five this season than in any of the previous three that we mentioned earlier. Um, the second thought I had was you mentioned St. Joe's back to back, and I couldn't help but think the last time they went back to back in the Big Five. You guys probably know where I'm going with this, but it was 2003-04. They went 4-0 in the Big Five, two consecutive seasons. And of course, I learned a lot about that 03-04 team. If I could do a quick plug for the book, A
Of
Soaring Season,
course.
which will be coming out March 1st, getting closer to publication and getting really excited. But just last thought is just I'm just so excited for the season. I think the Big Five is going to be better than it's been in recent years. The second iteration of the Big Five Classic, look, we're talking about it, has people talking about it. There's so much more interest in the Big Five now. It's just exciting to see what happens. The coaches are excited. The players are excited. They're all into this Big Five. Villanova is motivated. So I think they're going to come into that first game at Hagen super hungry and ready to go. Look how they did their scheduling. They thought Eric Dixon might be out for 3 games, potentially with a suspension. He was only suspended for one, but they scheduled 3 games in what, Monday, Wednesday, Friday,
Mhm.
5 days, so they could make sure that he's ready to go for the Big Five. That shows you how much they are putting into it this season. In past years, I don't know that they would have done that. Perhaps they would have, but just super excited, glad to be with you guys. Love what you're doing, and can't wait, as Cope said, you know, to get out on the court and be back. Be back on press row, back inside the great gyms, the great Big Five, the historic tradition, and just can't wait. Just can't wait.
Couldn't have said it any better myself. Cope, would you like to give it a try?
Not really. I'll just reiterate that I'm really excited, and I'm sure again that doesn't surprise anybody. This is my favorite sport, my favorite time of the year. I'm looking forward to being there, especially looking forward to that LaSalle game. I from what I've seen on online, Blazer Arena looks awesome. So really excited to go for a game there. Americans should be pretty feisty in the Patriot League too. So I think a pretty good like low major opponent for LaSalle to play. So really looking forward to it. As we build on towards March, that will be here before you know it. Season's gonna fly by, so ready to just sit back and enjoy the ride.
As are all of us. Well, fellas, this has been the Big Five preview. Aaron, thank you so much for coming on as always. You guys definitely, as you know by now, make sure you go check out big5hoops.com, Bracy Sports Media. Of course, pre-order Soaring Season coming out March 1st. Can't forget about that. And it is my great pleasure to say, ladies and gentlemen, go watch some college basketball. We'll see you next time.
Let's do it.